All right, good evening, everyone. I am Paula Venencia. I am the principal at Stony Creek Elementary School. I'm happy you could all join us tonight. I can't see all your faces, so if I look a little, I don't know, funny, it's because I can't see any of you. But I know you're out there, and we are excited to share our new proposed elementary schedule and the process that we use to reach the current schedule that we're going to share tonight. So Sue, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So we're going to share the scheduling process outcomes that we were looking for. We wanted, of course, our new schedule to align with student learning with grade level outcomes and expectations. We were looking to promote rigorous instructional opportunities for all of our learners. We also wanted to strategically deploy staff resources to maximize the impact of our instructional day. And we also, of course, want to utilize best practices to create an efficient process, and then include opportunities for student connections and movement, and of course, some additional recess time. So tonight, we will give an overview of what our process looked like for our master schedule. We will also be showing 2 sample grade level schedules. You will get your specific child's schedule in August when everyone returns to school. Just an FYI, we don't publish schedules publicly for safety reasons with times and whatnot. So just to go over our process and what we did over the past year. Go ahead, Sue. We started in the summer and we started having initial discussions about our master schedule and our recess. We know that that was a big interest across the district, that more recess was introduced into our schedule. So we started there. And then September, October, we started creating some goals for ourselves. We established some school schedule teams. So we had members at each of our schools who provided input and feedback into the process. And then we identified needs that we wanted to look at across grade levels in each grade level. And then we developed, in November and December, we developed a priority focus areas. We did some research on schedules from area school districts, and we gathered staff input. Yeah, so thanks. And then in January, February, we gathered input from our families. We continued to work with our scheduling committees to define period allocations and then develop initial drafts of the schedule. And in March and April, we continued to refine. We got more feedback. We looked at our encore rotation. We gathered more staff feedback. We gathered family feedback, and then we finalized a schedule. And then here we are in May, and we have already shared the schedule with our teachers and our staffs at our schools. And now here we are sharing the schedule that we have created with you, our families. And then in August, our plan is to implement our new elementary schedule.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Sue Kanapka. I'm the principal at Lower Gwynedd. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to take it from here. As Ms. Venenzia said, we worked very collaboratively, very efficiently and diligently across the last year, and we're very excited about the process that we engaged in, but also the schedule that we have for our students for the 2023 and 2024 school year. With that being said, along with the timeline, within the timeline, the things that were important to guide us in the process were what we called our guiding questions. And, you know, whenever we think of an outcome of something, we always want to think of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And we wanted to make sure that our guiding questions were things that we came back to throughout the process and guided us in the right direction to create the best schedule for students not only academically, but socially and emotionally too. So our big guiding questions were things like, what are the goals and priorities that we want to consider and what's most important in those areas? What's working well in our current schedule? And what are the things that we want to improve or change or shift a little bit? We also had to, exist within some constraints, as you would in any system. And there were non-negotiables that we had to maneuver around and make sure that we were working within our constraints for the schedule for next year. And then it's always good to consider what the basics are for an elementary schedule and for the elementary system. And of course, what are those best practices? In the areas of curriculum instruction, what are the best practices that we want our schedule to allow us to be able to do during our day instructionally for students, but also what are best practices in the area of social emotional learning? Because as you know, at all levels, but especially at the elementary level, the whole child is very important to us here at the elementary level. Okay. With that, I hand it over to Ms. Farlow.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Angela Farlow, the principal of Bluebell Elementary, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our priority areas. So based on feedback from all of our stakeholders, you may remember those surveys that were sent out to you, we were able to develop priority areas for a new schedule. So first, we recognized a need to increase the time for language arts instruction, especially in the primary grades. The goal was to support early literacy skill development, and we really wanted to increase our time so we can implement a core phonics program, and that's in grades K through 2. So you will see in this new schedule an increase in English language arts. We also really wanted to increase opportunities for student connections and movement. So we'll have that dedicated morning meeting time for teachers to connect. Think about opportunities for teachers to develop community, to make connections, for students to make connections with one another, to set goals for the day. So we're going to start with those SEL activities, and it's a defined part of our schedule. And in grades K through 5, that's 15 minutes every morning. And this is what I know you really want to hear. We also recognize there will be additional extended recess time at each grade level. Currently, all grades receive 15 minutes of recess. So in grades K and 2, we're going to extend that to 2 15-minute recess periods. And in grades 3 through 5, they'll have 1 15 recess period and then 1 10-minute recess period. Teachers, though, will continue to incorporate frequent movement breaks throughout the day. Moving from class to class, through the hallways, dance breaks, there's lots of great ways for teachers to incorporate more movement. Next slide, please. We also recognize how well our current schedule is working as far as being efficient for us to maximize instructional time and staffing. So we are going to deviate a little bit from our 24-day rotation. We're going to change it to a 12-day rotation. And what that allows us to do is to increase STEM lessons so that they will be part of our library rotation. We're actually going to pull guidance lessons as an encore, and we're going to schedule them separately so that we have a little more flexibility for our counselors to support and serve our students. We'll still continue to have our PI time, which is our practice, intervention, and enrichment periods to support the needs of all students. And in this new schedule, what you'll notice is arrival and homeroom time and pack up and dismissal time. We have embedded that into the schedule so that we know that this time exists, but we want to make it a part of our schedule so teachers knew and you know that there is time devoted for that movement, that transition time that we desperately need. So with that, I am now going to turn it over to Dr. Bialka.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jason Bialka, the principal at Shady Grove Elementary School, and I'm going to build upon what Ms. Farlow was just talking about in terms of changes. And a lot of the changes that were shared just previously talked about kind of boosts in time in certain areas. So I did want to kind of hit upon some of the other areas that you're getting a slight decrease in time allocation and talk about the decisions for that. So we talked earlier about going through and talking to our teachers and our building level teams and discussing the amount of time that we spend or should be spending in certain content areas and trying to create a schedule that really reflects that. The previous schedule, everyone, whether you were a kindergartner or a fifth grader, had the same amount of time in math, the same amount of time in English language arts, same amount of time in science. And as you can imagine, you know, our kindergarten students are doing very different things than our fifth grade students. So talking to our teachers about what would be the ideal amount of time that we want to spend in some of these areas. And for math, for our kindergarten and first grade, especially looking at a 75-minute block of time is a pretty significant block of time for math. Our kindergarten and first grade teachers giving us feedback that 60 minutes of that math time is an appropriate amount of time, the time that they would be doing instruction. And don't forget, as Ms. Farlow had mentioned, there's also still that pie time block that's an additional 30 minutes in the day where there can be intervention or enrichment taking place in really a variety of areas, but knowing that that exists as well. But so in math and K1, we went down to 60 minutes from 75, and grade 2, we went down to 65 minutes. Looking at how our curriculum is laid out in terms of how it's structured, we still feel very confident that this is a significant amount of time for us to be focusing in on the math skills that we need to be doing with our students. The grades 3 through 5, it stays the same at that 75-minute mark. And then social studies science is currently 60 minutes across the board. So you can see there's a reduction in that time, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes across those grades. But also looking at, as our teachers look for more opportunities to do cross-curricular work. So meaning that, you know, 35 or 40 minutes of social studies in a lot of ways can be connected with much of the language arts work that we do. Similarly, science can be connected to some of the math work that we do, and really encouraging our teachers to pursue those cross-curricular connections and have those two content areas shared at some parts of the day as well, and having that flexibility to do that. So the next slide that we're going to look at is going to show you two sample schedules. And Ms. Venencia mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, at the elementary level, we don't map out the exact times of day because our building has students entering and exiting, you know, in the middle of the day for recess, and now that's going to occur even in a second time of the day. We just don't publish that information on a website or on a videotaped presentation such as this, but that information will be shared with you in August. You will be able to see your child's schedule. This gives you a snapshot as to what it would look like, and I'll walk you through each schedule that we're looking at and why we made some of the decisions that we did. So in kindergarten, first and second grade, and if you're looking to the right there, you're looking at that first grade day in the life of, we prioritized having English language arts and math more towards the front half of a child's schedule, and then the back half where those students having a long academic day trying to do more things like encore or things that may lend themselves to a lot of hands-on activities like science. So when we were structuring K1-2, one of the things that was a priority to us was really building in that ELA math time in the early morning to the mid-afternoon, and then conversely having that encore block in the afternoon. That's based in practice. We have been doing that for years at the elementary level. Our K1-2 students currently have their encore period. So by encore, I'm sorry, I'm just referencing it like everybody knows encore. Encore would be physical education, art, music, library. So that takes place for our K-1-2 kiddos in the afternoon after lunch. Whereas grades 3, 4, 5 would have that encore block in the morning. I know this is not the school start time meeting. I should have clarified that in the beginning, but with that being said, trying to have our 4th and 5th grade students ease into their mornings a little bit more, along with 3rd grade, by providing that encore in the beginning and doing a little bit more heavy lifting, so to speak, with ELA math and some of the academic subjects in that midday to late afternoon. So that's actually something we kept from our current schedule in terms of when that's structured. As you look through that 1st grade one on the right, you're going to see ELA 135 minutes. Don't let that scare you. It's broken down even further. We didn't include it in that graphic, but what I can share with you is that an ELA block is broken into chunks. So especially at that K-1-2 level, where there is going to be the most increase in ELA, we're doing foundations work, which is our literacy program, and that's going to be about a 30-minute segment, and then it's broken up into a writing segment and a reading segment as well. So, ELA 135 minutes, you would not see 135 minutes straight of anything, but know that that would be broken down into 3 chunks there. But you can see the recess and lunch is a little bit earlier in the day. And then following that, hopefully our kids are re-energized and doing some math. And then they have encore recess and then science and social studies to close the day. And the schedule on the left, the 4th grade schedule, you can see that it's, as I mentioned, starting out with a morning that is a little bit more easing into the morning with pie time and encore before getting into some math, having a nice break with recess lunch in the middle, and then returning to language arts, which they have a significant language arts block. So that's then broken up by a recess in the middle of the day. So you're looking at our students having recess, somewhere depending on their grade level in, let's say, the 10:10 to 11:30-ish range, and then all students having a second recess in the later afternoon as well. Like I said, I can't share the exact details, but those will be shared with you at the start of the school year, your specific schedules for your specific children. I think we can go to the next slide too. So in terms of our next steps, as I just referenced, the homeroom teacher placements are shared in August. And also our teachers will be sharing with our families, what is the class schedule? What does the schedule look like for the day? So when you hear from a 1st grade teacher, they'll define that for you, and you'll have a better idea as to what's occurring in their morning, middle of the day, afternoon. And then as well as back to school night, which we all have in the first 2 weeks of the school year or thereabouts. I think I've checked our schedule. The latest one goes maybe September 14th, but that'll be another opportunity for you to hear from the teachers at the actual evening about what that schedule looks like. You can see it as well, and they can walk you through that piece. So our final slide, we want to say thank you and do give an opportunity for some questions. With the questions, we'd like questions that would be for the good of the group. Obviously, there's 4 elementary principals here, and you all have your own children. And if you have a very specific question about your child and your child in their schedule and what that might look like for them, it would probably be best to reach out to any one of us to talk specifically, after this presentation at a different time about your specific child and the schedule for them. But general questions for us, we're more than happy to answer. I think there's a raised hand feature, but I'm not sure if it's for everybody has that right now. Oh, there's one. It does work. Lynn, do you want to go ahead and share your question?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for presenting this and being so transparent about it. I'm so excited about the additional recess. I've been begging for this, as some of you may know, for about 6 years. So I'm thrilled. The one question I have is, right now, as I understand it, transition time takes away from the recess block slightly. I don't know how much it is. I can't quantify it. I just know it's been a challenge. I'm wondering how we'll make sure that we get the full 10 minutes for the second recess, as opposed to losing some of that time to transition.
Sure. So a couple things that we're trying to do is do just that, eliminate transitions, and that's why we're really focused in honing in on the minutes that we're spending. And one of the things about that second recess, you have to remember about a transition. Nobody has any problem getting out to recess on time. It's exiting from recess and coming into the lunchroom that, you know, presents a challenge to some extent. Our second recess is not going to be bookended by a lunch. And so therefore, you know, getting our kids in and out of the lunchroom efficiently, you know, and going through that process will not be a concern that we'll have with that second recess. It won't be followed by that lunch period. So that transition should ensure that lack of a transition needed in that second recess for lunch, which, as you know, just timing wise, we have to be on a little bit of a tighter schedule to get that done, but that 10 minutes should not be, you know, harmed by, because there is no lunch that follows that second recess, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Thanks so much. I think that once the school year starts and we have this new schedule up and running, it would be amazing to sort of check in and make sure that the transition times don't become an issue, you know, but I'm so excited about it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't have a hand raise feature, you're more than welcome to come off mute and ask a question if you like.
Hi, was just wondering whether the presentation that was provided today, would it be emailed out for everybody to just refer?
So I can comment on that. This presentation is recorded and we will be capturing the link and communicating that out to our families sometime tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, so as Dr. Bialka mentioned, for those of you who are still with us, if you do have questions after night, please feel free to reach out to your building principal. We will be happy to answer any questions you have, go through any of the pieces again with you. And like Mrs. Konopka said, the link to this meeting